You know, God didn't give me the family that I wanted, but he gave me the family that I needed. I remember praying plenty of days, asking God to restore my family, to heal my family, so that we can have a relationship, so that we can be close. You know, all of our kids can get to know each other. You know, I can have my mom, my dad, they can come over the house, spend time with the kids, etc., etc. I remember praying these things, and I remember even making up scenarios in my mind for so many years about my parents, fantasizing about the parents that I wanted. And in reality, I didn't get any of those. I answered my prayer, but he didn't answer it in a way that I wanted it to be answered. And for a very long time, I will always question God, like, why have to be the one child out of both of my parents' kids that is the distance child, you know, the child that just left out, if you will. And God answered me. And God told me that God said, I answered your prayer, but it does not look the way that you want it to look. But I answered your prayer. So sometimes God answers our prayers. Sometimes he answers our prayer instantly, but because it doesn't look like how we envision in our mind, how we fantasize about how it's supposed to look or how it's supposed to go, we automatically assume that God still hasn't answered our prayer. And for a very long time, it took me until I want to say a few days ago to realize that God already answered my prayer. So while I'm praying, asking for God to bring me closer to my family, to be close to my family, my mom, my dad, God already said, I gave you the family that you wanted. God already said, I gave you the family that you asked for, the family that you need, not the family that you wanted. God does everything for a purpose and on purpose. So sometimes your prayers is not going to look like how you want them to, because God knows best. If God had truly answered my prayer in a way I envisioned it, I'm gonna assume that it at some point it still will go right back to how it was before. You know, the distance, the jealousy, the hate, the envy. So sometimes we just need to thank God for his protection. And thank God that he is a God that knows best, because our heart can definitely deceive us and our minds can deceive us and make us believe things can be how we want it to be. And sometimes it just can't. That's because that's not God's purpose. That's not God's will.